I've been consulting psychology more and more for ethical and moral questions, um, and less philosophy. I think the thing about philosophy that does not satisfy me is that it's not organic, and it tries to lay down sort of a logical framework. And I've had several encounters with people who claim to have ethical frameworks, and here's the principles for leading an ethical life. For libertarians, I had someone recently, and this is quite often that the libertarians claim to hold the ethical high ground because of their non-aggression principle, that everyone should cooperate. There shouldn't be any coercion, no force. That everyone does what they want through consent. Okay, that there's no aggression, and this is like the first principle for libertarians, and everything else falls from that. Then there's Aristotle stating that the purpose for human existence, that what your goal in life should be is to be happy, and here are the ethics that enable people to be happy. I don't really buy that, because I think in terms of psychology is more organic, and it's more rooted in biology. And the first law of biology is evolution and survival. And understanding those things, and understanding how that affects who we are and our behavior and how we perceive things, is very important to bring in that biological aspect into ethics, because we're interacting with other biological creatures, and we're trying to decide how to live our lives with all the legacy that we have from our evolutionary background, and that includes a lot of the things that can fool us in modern times. The modern industrial age has brought about ways of satisfying human appetites very quickly and cheaply, and with refined sugar, for example. These things can very easily fool our brains into thinking that it's good for us. It makes us happy. That things that make us happy are good for us. And that's not the case anymore. We know that for a fact, that things that can make us happy may not be good for us. And especially in modern society, there are people actively seeking out those things which are cheap to produce, which can fool people into thinking that they're good for them. So I'm not sure that happiness is a goal necessarily. You can claim that, it's addiction eventually makes people miserable because they become dysfunctional, and yeah, sure, okay, it's bad for your health, and addiction is something you pay for later in life, but it's still this happiness principle. And how do you know when you've reached the end of it? How do you really know when you've reached the end of the addiction tunnel? That happiness isn't just an addiction to some hormone your brain produces. Okay. So to me, survival is the first principle of ethics, and self-preservation. But there's survival of on many scales. That not only do we need to survive as individuals, we need to survive in groups. We need to survive as families. We need to survive as businesses. We need to survive as nations. We need to survive as a species, and these different levels of organization require us to adjust our ethics in such a way that we ensure our survival. Okay? Now, going for greatest happiness does not necessarily do that. Non-aggression definitely does not do that. Okay? Because non-aggression just says you're all individuals, satisfy yourself as individuals, and then we're not going to worry about higher order social structures or entities. Those things don't matter. They don't go into the equation. Okay? And I have to disagree with that. I have to disagree with that. Of course, we want to minimize aggression, but if people are being belligerent in destroying the environment, you have to stop them. there are requirements that we place on people. We constrain their freedom to act as individuals in order to give the social group the freedom to go in a particular direction, to survive. Okay? Because to me, freedom is worthless if it doesn't provide the freedom to choose the path towards survival. Okay? If you're not free to choose towards survival, then freedom is worthless. And it's always a case of choosing which freedoms you would prefer to have. That there's, people are not free to go out and kill other people, and that makes you free to walk down the street without fearing for your life. Things like that. So my ethics is deeply rooted in psychology and biology, not philosophy so much. And I think more in terms of survival, and when I'm trying to construct ethics, trying to understand the ways in which my brain could be fooling me. That I don't always have a clear, conscious picture of myself. That my brain has got all this evolutionary baggage that's dragging along. It's got all this family history that's dragging along, and all this legacy stuff that makes it difficult for me to see myself clearly. Okay? And things that make it difficult for me to change. The idea that, I am very well practiced in a particular way of life, and to change that can be quite daunting. In understanding the ways in which change has to occur gradually. That you can't change everything dramatically. That understanding gradual change and how to get from point A to point B is necessary, even if it means going backwards occasionally. So, anyways, I guess I just want to say, I know you're studying a lot of classical philosophy and everything, but I hope you will take some time to look into psychology. And I really think that's like, the philosophy of science with Aristotle, the idea that there are, 4 or 5 basic solids, and their whole view of science was a stab in the dark. It really was. And modern science has been able to articulate so much more clearly, in so much more precise and mathematical terms, just what science is all about and what the physical laws are all about. I think that applies also to a large extent towards ethics. That I think the whole field of psychology has just subsumed the whole ethical question completely, and that I look towards psychology for answers to ethical questions, not to philosophy. I think philosophy was a good start, but I think once it matures enough, I think philosophy is something that once matured becomes a science. And I think psychology is becoming more of a science, especially lately. And I would encourage you to look into it more. That that the survival principle is the one that matters most to me, but not survival necessarily of individuals, but survival of layers of social organization, that we belong to organizations, and we have an interest in seeing those organizations survive as well. So, especially the species. So, this is probably long-winded. I'm gonna say that's all I'm gonna say for now. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.